Hello guys, here are a few overall tips to improve your DPS as an Elemental Shaman and some specific tips on each boss of the Black Temple. I hope you can improve your DPS with this, so let's get right in. First of all, I give you 5 overall tips that work on every boss. Number 1. Try to move as little as possible. Every movement is a DPS loss for us. Only move if it is really needed. Number 2. Mana management. Mana management is the key of a good pass. If you go you lose DPS. If you have too much mana left at the end of the fight, you lose DPS. Start every new boss with lightning bolt spam and get a feeling of your mana bar. Then start mixing in chain lightning. Dark or demonic runes and mana potions can help while you learn a new fight. If you know the fight well enough, you can go with your best rotation, which is 4 lightning bolts and 1 chain lightning at this point in the game, and destruction potions. As a rule of thumb, match your mana bar to the boss HP. Number 3. Cooldown usage. Look how long the fight takes in your guild and try to fit in as much cooldowns and destruction potions as possible. The best is to use your cooldowns and potions together with Bloodlust, but sometimes it is worth it to use them outside of Bloodlust when you get an extra usage out of it. Number 4. Positioning. A lot of bosses have mechanics that force you to move, and sometimes bosses run out of your range. Think of this before you start the fight and position yourself in the way that you avoid these mechanics or don't have to move as much when the boss moves to a new position. Number 5. Communication. Talk with your group and your raid leader. It helps a lot. Jewel crafting necks are very powerful, but you can only use them all the time if you talk with your group. Ask your raid leader and your group in advance if it is okay to use your fire elemental on a certain boss to push your DPS. It is a little DPS loss overall, but a very powerful tool to boost your personal DPS if you really need a good pass on a specific boss. How can we as a group avoid some mechanics? Talk with them how to position on the boss and let them know where you and your totems are. There are a lot of benefits from communication. I think you get the point. Now let us talk about each boss in the Black Temple individually. All 5 tips that I mentioned before are important on each boss, so I don't repeat them when I show you the different bosses and only focus on boss specific things. Hi Warlord Nientos. This fight is really short. If your guild can kill this boss under 2 minutes, you don't have to redrop your totems. This is a big boost to your DPS. If your guild doesn't kill Nientos in under 2 minutes, redrop your totems while the boss has his shield up. On this boss I use the lightning capacitor and sextant of unstable turrets. If you don't have the sextant, go with Icon of the Silver Crescent from the badge vendor and use it together with Bloodlust and a destruction potion. Mana should not be a problem, so go with 4 times lightning bolt and 1 chain lightning rotation. Using 1 dark rune when you drop below 80% mana is always good and should be a no-brainer for every fight. Spread at least 8 yards to everyone around you to prevent getting more than necessary spell pushbacks from his ability Needlespine. If you don't have to redrop your totems while his shield is up, spam lightning bolts into his shield and hope that it breaks when the lightning bolt reaches the boss. Don't use chain lightning while his shield is up. It has no travel time and will 100% land in his shield. Hope that you don't get targeted from his ability Impaling Spine. Supremos. The key to a good pass here is standing still and don't panic when the second phase begins and the boss runs close to you. If you have a kill time above 2 minutes, redrop your totems when Supremos goes into his second phase 1, since it has a threat drop and you need to wait with DPS for some seconds anyway. On this boss I use the lightning capacitor and Mark of the Champion from Kel'Thuzad. If you don't have this trinket, use sextant or icon. Start the fight on max range. The molten flame cannot reach you there. The volcanoes spawn under players, so don't stand in too crowded areas to avoid them. If you have to move out of a volcano, use a flame shock or earth shock while moving. Flame shock is only better if it is up for his full duration, so check the boss HP beforehand. Akama. Akama does not count towards your all-star points, so don't be disappointed when you don't get a high pass here. I use TLC and sextant, but it is a good option to use 2 unused trinkets like Icon of the Silver Crescent and the Dark Iron Smoking Pipe. Use the first trinket on the channelers and the second on Akama. The fight has a few mobs, but only the channelers, sorcerers and Akama counts towards your log. Place your totems on top of the stairs. Use Bloodlust and the Destruction Potion on phase 1. Try always to switch to the highest HP mob. If you are lucky and have a mob between two channelers, use Chain Lightning. The channelers are normally too far away to get a bounce. The mobs from the sides do not count towards your log, but they sometimes cast a Rain of Fire if they are still alive while Akama enters phase 2. Avoid too crowded areas to avoid it and pump your normal rotation into Akama. Teron Gorefiend. This boss is the perfect target dummy to test out your single target DPS. I used TLC and Mark of the Champions on this fight. If you don't have the mark, go with Sextant or Icon. A little gimmick for this fight is the consumable Scorchbane Infusion. You can get it in the Ghostlands and it provides you with 15 spell damage against undead enemies. Use your totems as close to the pull timer as possible. The fight for most of you is around 2 minutes. It is a huge DPS increase to not drop your totems twice. Use Bloodlust and all your cooldowns on the pull and run with your highest DPS rotation, which is most likely 4 times Lightning Bolt and 1 Chain Lightning. Try to end the fight with an Earthshock when you see that your last Lightning Bolt will not reach the target anymore. This is a tip that applies to all bosses. If you get targeted by Shadow of Death, your pass does not count anymore, so pray to the RNG gods that you don't get it and pump as hard as you can. Burtok Blood Boil. For trinkets I use TLC and Sextant. Go with Icon if you don't have it, like always. Go to the middle of the waterfall, you will not face aggro the boss there. You can drop your totems before the fight and can start to pump when the pull timer reaches 0 without having to move closer to the boss. If you are in the first soak group, wait with your Bloodlust and use it after you repositioned. If you are in the second or third soak group, use Bloodlust immediately on the pull. The boss fight for most of you is above 2 minutes, so use trinkets and potions 2 times. When your kill time is under 2 minutes, use a shock when you have to move to soak Blood Boil or spread after the 5th Blood Boil. If your kill time is longer, then use the time while moving to drop new totems. If you get targeted from Fel Rage in phase 2, your log does not count anymore, so another boss where RNG is a big part. Reliquary of Souls. Check your guild's kill time of this boss to decide which trinkets you want to use. If your kill time is around 5 minutes, you can use 2 unused trinkets, like Icon of the Silver Crescent and Dark Iron Smoking Pipe, since you have them up for every phase. If your kill times are faster, you can go with Sextant and an on-use, or Sextant and TLC. In phase 1, it is impossible to over-aggro, so start to cast as soon as the boss spawns and use the Destruction Potions for the pull. You can use your highest DPS rotation and don't have to worry about mana, since you get back to full mana in every intermission phase. The mobs in the intermission do not count towards your log, so don't stress out to damage them, since they have a very low HP pool. In phase 2, go as close to the boss as possible to reduce the spell pushback from the Hour of Desire. In melee range it's about 0.2 seconds, on max range it's about 0.6 seconds. The lightning capacitor also gives you spell pushback when it procs. I got the 99 log with it equipped, but this is the only boss where it's fine to unequip it and use other trinkets instead to avoid it. Use your second destruction potion as soon as possible to have it ready for phase 3. If you are on kick duty for Deaden, don't panic to kick as soon as possible. The cast takes 1.6 seconds with Curse of Tongues applied, so you can most of the time finish your cast before kicking. In phase 3, delay your cooldowns as much as possible. The boss takes more damage to the end of the fight, so use your third destruction potion when the boss is around 50% HP. Mother Shahraz. Your DPS on Mother is dependent of your guild's tactic. If you want to do a high pass, ask your raid leader if it is okay to not use shadow resistance gear. You can argue that you have an Ankh if you die from mechanics. Also try to convince your raid to use Thornling Seeds from Dire Maul to reduce the chance of getting teleported. For this fight I usually use TLC and Mark of the Champions. If you don't have the mark, use Sextant or Icon. Your water shield will drop very soon. If you don't have mana problems, don't refresh it, since it is an extra GCD which you can use to DPS instead. This tip also helps you on every boss fight. Drop your totems while running to your position. If you get teleported, your pass is most likely bad, so hope for RNG that you can blast the whole boss fight. If your kill time is longer than 2 minutes, redrop your totems after you get knocked up. Use Bloodlust, CDs and Destruction Potion when you are on your position. Don't use Hellstones or Shadow Resistant pots if your goal is to get a high pass. They share cooldown with Destruction Potion and Dark Runes. The Illdari Council. It's not so easy to get a good pass on this fight, and it depends on the tactic of your guild, but here are a few tips to increase your chances. First of all, if you are on kick duty for Lady Malande, I highly recommend using a Focuskickmacro. I share this macro under this video. If you have mana problems, use rank 1 Earthshock instead to save some mana. This boss has multiple tactics. You need to adjust your playstyle to each of them. I try to cover each tactic. The most important part of this boss is the aura that changes every 30 seconds. The boss starts with the melee aura. Now you have 30 seconds to do full DPS. After that time he switches to the caster aura and gets 250 resistance. This will reduce your DPS by a lot. You can build a gear set with 250 spell pen to negate this effect. This will help you to increase your pass, but it is possible to get a good pass without a spell pen set. Use Elemental Mastery and a Destruction Potion in the pull, but wait with Bloodlust for the second melee hour. You use 5 to 10 seconds while pulling till all mobs are on position, so you don't waste 25 seconds of your Bloodlust when he switches to the caster hour. Use Dark Runes on CD and Mana Potions if needed. Tactic number 1, tank the mage. If your raid tanks the mage, it gives us the opportunity to switch to him when the caster hour is up and continue with our normal damage. The mage gets spell immunity once in a while, so be careful to switch back to the paladin if needed. Tactic 2, kite the mage. If your raid kites the mage, you are forced to damage into the caster aura. Like I said, you can negate this with spell pen. If you don't have spell pen, only use lightning bolt while the aura is up, since mana is a big factor on this fight. Illidan Stormrage. The iconic last boss of the Black Temple where we all hope to get Sardum. But even without this staff you can improve your pass, and here's how you do it. I use the Lightning Capacitor and Mark of the Champion. If you don't have it, you can use Sextant or Icon. Phase 1. Start this fight with Elemental Mastery and the Destruction Potion. The first little trick is to use your Chain Lightning when the parasites spawn. If your guild doesn't bring the parasites to Illidan, don't bother, but ask them to do so. It is a good DPS boost for everyone and they die really quickly there. The timer for them is accurate, so start cast your Chain Lightning when the timer has 1.3 seconds left to get a juicy Chain Lightning. Phase 2. The Fire Elementals are demons, so Mark of the Champion is very good for the whole fight. Care for your aggro since the tank have fire resistance gear. Normally aggro is not a huge problem outside of the first 2 to 4 seconds. If your tank starts both on the same spot, you can do 1 to 2 Chain Lightning, which hits both elementals. Use your second Destruction Potion right as the cooldown runs out. This makes it possible to use the third one in the last phase. If you hold your potion, you can only use 2 of them. Phase 3. Use Bloodlust as soon as possible with Elemental Mastery to skip phase 4. Pump your best rotation into Illidan. Don't be scared to burn a lot of mana, just make sure your water shield is up when the transition into phase 5 happens. MP5 will kick in really good when the transition happens. Phase 5. When you enter phase 5 with low mana, just go for Lightning Bolt spam. In this phase you can use your third Destruction Potion. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. If you have questions or want a Mount Hyjal and Sunworld edition, write it down in the comments. If you want to see me playing live, turn in on my Twitch channel twitch.tv/schniesen. Goodbye and keep it pumpin'.